Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent. Today I have a political candidate as my guest, Laurie Kroger. Laurie, nice to meet you.
You too, thank you.
And Laurie, you're running for Assembly for the 30th District out of Hudson here, correct?
Correct, I am.
And let's get your spelling down for folks, because if they want to, do a web search or whatever, to learn more about you, spell the last name for me.
Kroger, Kroeger.
All right. Now I was pretty convinced it was going to be Kroger, but thank you for setting me straight. Now let's go ahead and just tell folks, get a little bit about who you are. First of all, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Colorado. I have lived in numerous different states.
Okay.
My father was military. I lived with my mother, and she blames it on the gypsy blood.
Okay.
We just had a habit of moving every couple of years, so I've lived everywhere from Colorado to Alabama to Alaska. Finally planted my roots in Wisconsin.
And when did you plant those roots in Wisconsin?
February of 2001.
Okay.
I could give you the exact date if you want it.
Yeah, well,
It was a big change.
we know that that's 13 years then, if my math is correct. So do you have family then in Wisconsin?
I do. Actually, the reason I came to Wisconsin was because of my brother. He had been given up for adoption, and we found him in 1999. My mother had put a post on the internet. He had put a post on the internet. Guy came up and said, "Hey, I found your son," and we all got together.
Wow, that's like something right out of an Oprah show or something.
It is.
How are you employed?
I currently work for Ameriprise Financial.
Okay.
I work in our managed accounts department, solving issues, working on root cause problems, trying to prevent future problems, making sure that things work out the way the clients really anticipate that they happen.
And so what's your education in?
I have a bachelor or associate's degree in business.
Okay.
Started out with Century Community College and just battled my way up.
Okay. So you have a business degree then. And so as far as other job history or qualifications, what type of work before Ameriprise?
Before Ameriprise, most of my life I have been in the customer service industry of one fashion or another. Everything from McDonald's to Greyhound to Thrivent Financial to, many different walks, but it's always been client related or service related.
So you have to be
people are my passion.
Yep, you have to have good people skills.
Yeah.
All right.
I love people.
And, well, then how do we arrive at a political jaunt here? Why are you running for office?
Because I love people.
Okay.
The government has gotten to a point where they are literally inundating and telling us everything that we have to do. It's one regulation after another. Before you know it, they're going to tell you what kind of pillow I can sleep on. And it's just getting to a point of ridiculous.
Okay.
There's too much government spending. There's too much going on. There's waste everywhere.
All right. So how long have you been a libertarian? Let's separate a libertarian in philosophy, and how long have you been a Libertarian Party member?
So I think in philosophy, probably most of my life.
Okay.
I started out a very dedicated Republican. I really felt that we needed to be fiscally conservative. We need to be, really work on being responsible and taking care of these other issues. Socially, I didn't want to leave people behind.
Okay.
And that's where I have issues with some of the Republican going forward. It's like, oh, we'll just spend money here. We'll do this. Same with the Democrats. They want to spend all this money going down the social side.
Okay.
So you have your big government, you have your big socialistic behaviors, whatever. As far as the welfare and the special needs, other areas.
Okay, so from having interviewed libertarian candidates, in fact, I have a libertarian in my family, my second cousin, who we're going to be getting together in a family reunion the next month, and we always like to talk about politics, and he comes from Massachusetts but calls it Taxachusetts. So do you then subscribe to the general, some of the general planks of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin with more liberal social stances, decriminalization of marijuana?
Yes.
in favor of same-sex marriage.
Yes.
Again, it goes back to the philosophy of government shouldn't be meddling in people's personal lives.
That's exactly it.
Okay. But then on the then economic or the fiscal side, you believe Wisconsin's going down the wrong road and you disagree with some of the policies of, for instance, of Governor Scott Walker.
Right. Yeah,
And can you give me some examples?
I guess the biggest one that I have, and for some reason the name of it escapes me, they're using tax dollars to help fund businesses that were supposed to create jobs. And that's not happening.
Okay.
You know, they're using tax dollars to pay for private personal businesses, and it's not going where it was said it was supposed to be going.
I noticed you have a Facebook page of, I don't know do you know the name of the Facebook page, or they just put in Laurie Kroger and Assembly and it'll come up?
Yeah, it should come up with
All
that.
right. But one of your posts had to do with objection to the WEDC, which is the Wisconsin
Yes,
Economic
thank you.
Development Corporation. So is that your example of, again, public investment, private gain?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
And so you mentioned before being against welfare. You see that kind of as a form of corporate welfare then?
A little bit, yeah. You know, I'm not necessarily against welfare. You know, I think our system is currently broken, and we need to bring things a little more local so that we can actually help the people who need help in the ways that they need help. Because not everybody needs the same generic.
Understanding that you are an assembly candidate as a libertarian, from the federal, that's very, almost common knowledge. Libertarians, they want to see the abolishment of the Department of Education, Department of Energy, and see government shrink from that level. Tell me a little bit, what does the Libertarian Party want to do for Wisconsin?
Well, I think one of the main things we want to start with is eliminating the income tax.
Okay.
Just really focusing on the consumption tax because, we may buy Grey Poupon and pay the tax on that, where somebody in a middle class or a lower class, they're just going to buy regular mustard.
Okay.
We're going to buy the luxury car, so we're going to pay the extra tax on that because that's a choice that we make, and then without taking those dollars out of their income, they then have a decision as to where they're going to spend their own dollars.
Okay, and I've seen some states follow that model.
There are currently 7.
All right. Is Washington one of them?
Washington is one of them.
Yeah, because I've visited there. I have a brother that lives out there. He says it's great, no income tax, but you're paying 9.5% sales tax.
In some areas, and that depends. That's one of the things that we would have to look at is see where, we have our basic needs. Can we lower the basic needs taxes, without exorbitantly doing a sin tax?
Right.
Somebody who wants to go out and have a drink shouldn't have to pay 12% because they want to have a drink. So trying to balance it out to make sure that it's not
Right.
hurting in one individual or another.
Okay, so the tax reform at the state level, you would see, I don't know what the average is, I think it's 6% of it's a fairly flat tax brackets that we have in Wisconsin, but you would see that 6% picked up elsewhere between the property and the sales then?
Mostly through the sales. Eventually, we would like to get into the property tax as well.
Okay.
That hurts the poor more than it hurts anybody.
Well, except the very poor, they don't own property.
Right.
Okay, but maybe they pay it through
the
higher
struggling
rent.
middle class,
That could be
right.
the case. But what about, how would you fund schools then? I mean, if...
That would come through the taxes. It would be the same thing. By the time we get the legalization of marijuana, if we can grow hemp, oh my gosh, the benefits that we have in hemp alone and the revenue that Wisconsin can make off of that, it would be
That's
enormous.
a very interesting discussion. I'm still not sure where I come down on that, but because on the one hand, I understand the libertarian argument about decriminalizing marijuana and allowing the growing of hemp. There's other drugs as well, and we've had a recent, rise in the heroin, and that's part of it because of the painkillers and the proliferation of painkillers in our healthcare industry. But if you start regulating, isn't that kind of against the libertarian philosophy if you're regulating collecting tax off of the marijuana as
It's
opposed
still a consumption tax.
Okay.
It's just one more thing that, this is something you're going to choose to do. So you're going to pay the same as you would for maybe a pack of cigarettes or, a drink. It's not necessarily going to be a sin tax. and it's probably going to be around the same as everything else. We're trying to keep it at a relatively even keel. And when you're talking about hemp, you're not talking about just recreational use. You're talking about biofuel, you're talking about renewable energy sources, you're talking about building materials. You're talking about even the paper pulp, the company that in Wausau. If they could have used hemp to build, to make their printing papers and stuff, they may have been able to reduce their costs.
Now, where do you see, obviously being in favor of smaller government, where do you see the priorities for spending at the state level? Now, a separate argument about, and we can talk for days about the federal government.
Oh, yeah.
But just at the state level, we have the biggest, would be education split by K through 12 and then the university system. But in addition to that, of course, you have the roads, you've got your Department of Corrections, and then depending on who you want to talk to, whether it's the federal responsibility for health care, or whether the states ought to be taking that. Where does the libertarian philosophy fit with regard to state priorities for spending?
Well, the main thing is starting with the decriminalization of victimless crimes.
Okay.
The money that we spend in our criminal justice system is enough to probably fund a medical program for anybody who needs it. It's one of those things that we spend more persecuting somebody than we would just getting them help.
Okay.
So that would be the one place to start. We want to make sure that everybody has health benefits, but is that the state's responsibility to create that plan? Or do we open that up so that we have competition and there's, the free market world?
Okay.
So we really focus on the free market and making sure that everybody has decent prices.
Does the state have a role in providing an opportunity for post-high school education, whether it's vocational schools or universities?
As a benefit of one of those, yes. I think there are some areas that we can definitely work on helping to fund those educations. And it's one of those just not letting somebody use financial assistance to go to school for 5 years and do nothing with it.
Okay.
Just really focusing and making sure that they're on a path that's going to help them get somewhere. So not just handing them money.
Right. You're not opposed to then seeing tax dollars being used to train workers and educate our workforce then?
No, not entirely.
Okay. What other? How about on roads and infrastructure then? Again,
I think a lot of the roads and infrastructure, if we keep it down to a local level, we can work within that. But government-wise, yeah, we need to be responsible. We need to take care of those roads. And through the consumption tax, the gas tax, as we have visitors who come to Wisconsin, they're going to help cover those costs. Because they're not paying a Wisconsin income tax. Everybody is going to be paying that tax. So we're going to have our visitors that will help to cover those expenses.
Now, in talking with Dean Knudsen, who's the current assembly person, and have had him on as a guest in the show, he's talked to different groups. We're in the same Rotary Club. And he's explained that, because of the state's taking over or the responsibility for the Medicaid program, that providing health care to those people that have less income, that has been a much bigger piece of the pie, if you will. It's been an ever increasing, devotion of the tax budget, the state budget, and at the cost of these other areas, and that's why tuition tends to go up. Although we've had a recent freeze at the state level, but state wants to be able to help in education, but is limited because of the mandatory helping of those that don't make as much and funding healthcare. What do you see as far as that being able to continue, or would you be also in favor of limiting that?
I would be in favor of fixing it.
Okay.
Right now there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of things that overbilling, double billing, things that are people who really don't need it, who are using it, just kind of maybe bringing that gap down a little bit and being a little more diligent on helping the ones who really need the help versus just any person that can actually afford it and doesn't want to pay for it.
Okay. Any other issues that you see where the state government's heading in the wrong direction, or where you may have disagreement with our current representative?
I actually really like Dean a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's a great person, and Dean personally, I think he leans a little more on our side. But there are definitely some areas that we can work on improvement, mostly in the budget and the finances, making sure that we are being fiscally responsible.
Okay, great. Well, now if people want to learn more, I heard that you've had a little difficulty getting the web page up. You hope to have that up in a few weeks. Still fairly early in the campaign. Yeah. We're still in June as we tape this. This is going to play now in July. So I assume that you're just trying to get the name out there, the Kroger name, and will you be appearing in the parades coming up? We have one here in Hudson next week.
Yep, we'll be in Hudson. We were in River Falls. We're going to be in, or we were in Roberts, and we'll be in River Falls the following week. So.
Okay, great. And they can just Google the Kroeger if they want to learn more. And you do have a Facebook page and several posts on there. Is that right?
I do, yes.
Okay, very good. And well, good luck with your endeavor. And I know the district is smaller than when I ran back in the 90s, and part of that is the ever-increasing population. But I want to wish you luck, good, and have fun out there, I guess, meeting the folks. So,
thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us for another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal.